Welcome to the Average Punters podcast. I'm your host, Michael Chich. It's a place where we chop it up, talk some UFC. There was a big card on yesterday. Not that big on paper, but ended up being an absolute ripper. And here to chop it up with me is the man from the Mike Monroe Show, as usual. Mig, welcome.
As usual, I'm more than happy to be here, Chich. I'm loaded up on caffeine. I'm loaded up on water and no meals just yet. We're ready to do this.
Yeah, you're loaded up on all sorts of things, I'm sure. But yeah, the card yesterday, man, like I didn't have really high expectations. Like I'm kind of getting used to the weekly UFC events at this point. They've just been like churning them out. Mariah Sandhagen, I was interested in the main event, but man, I took a leaf out of your book, man, and I was watching the prelims, like partly by accident. If I knew it was the prelims, I would have just skipped right through it because I'm a casual. But on this case, I accidentally stumbled upon it. And man, am I glad that I did though, because man, there was some ridiculous knockouts. And obviously the one that sort of went viral, I guess. I know that word gets thrown around a fair bit, but your man, at least one Buckley got a win on the weekend. Joaquin Buckley, I believe it's pronounced Joaquin or Joaquin Buckley.
Joaquin or Joaquin, either way, but you're on fire today, Jesus.
Bro, that Taekwondo flying kick KO, for anyone who's listening and hasn't seen it, like if you're going to watch one thing from yesterday's card or just UFC this year, this might be the one to watch. Yeah, Buckley got this flying KO over this guy, Kasanganay, on the prelims. And man, was it impressive. He just sort of like kicked him in the body. Kasanganay caught his leg. And then during that, Buckley sort of got his leg free and flipped around in the one motion and kicked him straight in the head. And it was like this flying KO, like Bruce Lee shit. But man, what was your reaction to this? What had happened?
I've got a few people, like my brother, my dad, they're just like disgusting casuals like you, like even worse than you, which is like pretty far down. And you know, I just tell them, you know, on Sundays I'm watching the fights and that's pretty much all they know. I actually texted them a YouTube clip of that knockout. That's how, you know, exciting and that's how much you just want even the noobs to see. Like, yeah, this is how crazy it can get sometimes. And man, oh man. That was just crazy. Thanks to the commentary, the expertise of like Dan Hardy and stuff, explaining that it's a common, you know, Taekwondo technique that you see. And man, it was just perfect. Honestly, it's just the catch and then the spin, kick, pop. And yeah, it got me out of my chair 100%.
Yeah, and it was it's interesting because that's the sort of move, because I was talking to my dad afterwards as well. And it's sort of one of those moves that you think, oh yeah, you do this in a movie like how Bruce Lee would, but this sort of thing wouldn't actually work in a real fight. The fact that it actually knocked the dude out in the UFC where anything goes and the most effective martial arts wins just goes to show, man, this stuff, if you can land it, I mean, it's very hard to land obviously, but if you can, man, it's legit.
And there's always like some really interesting physics to it too, which I'm not going to pretend that I'm fully in tune with, but Dan Hardy said, you know, also that a lot of the strikes have been coming from around the side. So he had his guard covered, but that particular kick came straight up the middle. And that's what ultimately, you know, it was just a different unorthodox strike. And that's why they're able to, they work when they're unexpected or perfectly timed, those sorts of crazy, risky techniques.
Yeah, right. And it was interesting because I saw, I believe Buckley fought Kevin Holland, like it was a few weeks ago or a few months ago at this point. And Holland, a bit more of a veteran, ended up sparking him. But it was cool to see Buckley bounce back. And now I think that's a distant memory at this point. Like,
yeah, from what I remember, Buckley blew his load a bit then. And he seemed much more just relaxed, patient in this fight.
Yeah,
and,
controlled.
You know, yeah, right.
Absolutely. And also another one, this is on the prelims as well, a guy named Tom Breeze, who I didn't know about, a real big middleweight, TKO, this guy, KB
Buller. I've got a bit of a backstory for you on this one.
Please.
So my old man last week, right? This is random. This is out of left field, this story. Old man last week over the dinner table, he goes, do you know a fighter named KB Buller? And I'm like, no, I've never heard of him, whatever. And he said he's fighting out of Canada or whatever. Anyway, dad's concreter and he's doing a job for KB Buller's cousin at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So dude's like, oh, my KB Buller, whatever. He obviously knew that he was having an upcoming fight. my old man didn't say anything about, he was having a UFC fight coming up. So I didn't think anything, the name sort of left my mind. And he said this guy was Indian as well. So that was like two key notes that I had in mind. So I'm watching the UFC yesterday, and they're rolling out the card, and it's like KB, the Bengal Bulla. And I was like, I recognize the name, and the Bengal's an Indian reference. So, you know, called my old man. I was like, is this KB Bulla, the guy you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, it's that guy. Unfortunately, he got sparked by a stiff jab. Good on him. Hopefully he gets back on the horse. But I just thought that was an interesting story to share in my Sunday afternoon here in Melbourne watching the fights. But that man was no joke. Was it Tom Breeze?
Tom Breeze, yeah.
Breeze. He's a beast, man. He was no joke. Just to sit him with that jab, that was awesome.
And it sort of inspired me. Like, I like doing more calisthenics training, and apparently Tom Breeze has just been doing sort of body weight gymnastics routines. Nice. And that's sort of interesting because he's like real jacked. And I guess like a common misconception maybe that you need like heavy weights to get a body like that. But I don't know, just on that level, that was kind of interesting when the commentators, I believe it was Paul Felder, was pointing out that he's just been doing gymnastics routines and that sort of thing. So that sort of body weight control, I think GSP might have been one of the first to really introduce that into mixed martial arts. So I thought that was really cool. And I was very impressed with Tom Breeze, and seems like a pretty down-to-earth dude in the post-fight interview as well. So that was kind of cool. Let's talk the main event as well. Marlon Moraes versus Corey Sandhagen. Sandhagen was coming off a loss. Moraes was the number one contender in this fight, 1 versus 4. Man, it was the night of the ridiculous KOs, I guess. Sandhagen, another one worth looking up if you didn't see it, won via spinning heel kick over Moraes. And, the only dude, that would have been the highlight of the night if it wasn't for Buckley's ridiculous Taekwondo flying KO. But man, given the fact that it was a main event, Sandhagen coming off a loss really puts himself back in the title picture there at 135. But yeah, what'd you make of that bout overall?
Just isn't it funny how fast the narrative can change? And I'm not saying, too many people wrote off Sandhagen like that, because, a lot of people have faith in him. But just from the standpoint of, pretty quiet guy, and he said it himself, he just feels like he has a bit more stake after this victory, a bit more pull, if you will, when deciding opponents and that sort of thing, a bit more negotiating power. Because, what I mean by how the momentum can shift is just one very small thing happened, and it's obviously a very big thing, but when he said, when he called out his orbitals broke, I didn't know how to take that initially. I thought he may have been just like letting his corner know so they could just work that into the game plan sort of thing. After the fact, Corey Sandhagen said that he did it to sort of get in Marlon Moraes' head. So that was really interesting. I don't know exactly, but I think I heard Marlon say that, it got in his head as well. So it sort of did work to an extent. But whether it did or not, I feel like with that broken orbital, if it was in fact broken, would have just been picked apart anyway, and it wouldn't have ultimately looked too good for Moraes. So well done, Corey Sandhagen. I'm sure Moraes will get back on it because he's devastating, man.
Real hard hitter.
So such an impactful fighter. But swan song for Sandhagen. I don't even know what swan song means, so just correct me if that was the wrong word. But that was just, I really, really like how this in particular, it wasn't necessarily a physical thing that he had to clean up. It was all mental. He had to walk in to that fight and fight week in war mentality. And that's what ultimately it was about. And that's what sort of cost him in the Sterling fight. So I really appreciate that element too.
Yeah, and he was talking a bit in the post-fight press conferences of how he was really locked in during this whole, it's probably a lot easier to get distracted. Maybe it's the opposite for some people during this lockdown period when it comes to focusing for your sport, but it seemed to really be a positive, or he managed to turn it into a positive, Sandhagen. And interestingly, he also said, because, Sterling probably deserves the next title shot at 135, but if he was offered it, then he'd take it because it's that sort of business. You can't be too nice. Like, the opportunities are few and far between. So if he gets offered it, he's going to take. And I thought that was real honest from him. And he'd absolutely deserve it, but probably just after Aljo fights Peter Yan, you'd think that'd be the next fight to make. Also, Last week, we're talking about Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier fighting in a charity match, potentially. It seems like the UFC, seems like we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes too much. Seems like the UFC have offered them both a fight. From what we're hearing, at least both fighters have agreed to it in public over Twitter. And this seems like the fight that we actually would have wanted as fans, just in general. We'd much rather see Conor and Dustin fight in the UFC than a charity match. We want a legit fight. You can still do all the donate to each other's charities and stuff on the side as well. So it's not official yet, though, which is kind of interesting. But Conor has posted some training photos inside an octagon, so it leads me to believe. I know, it is what it is. Like, it's hard to put this into concrete until there's an official announcement, but seems like it's trending in the sort of direction. But Conor said he wants either November 21st or December 12th, I believe. So, I mean, first of all, do you think this fight happens this year?
You're gun to my head, yes. Because it's looking promising because of the fallouts of the other main events we've had, and specifically how Conor wants it to happen in 2020. Just from looking at the openings right now, it looks like there's room for it. So that's what I'm going off.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it happens. Like, it's kind of annoying. Like, I did see someone, can't remember who said it on Twitter, but I don't know. It's not usually a good sign when negotiations go public. So I don't know. That might be the only point for concern. Maybe there's a bit of, it's hard to know what's real, like what's actually going on behind the scenes. But surely,
do you know what? Something else that keeps sort of piquing my interest as well in terms of like the confirmation of the fight is John Kavanagh keeps posting like dates and numbers and getting real excited about it on Twitter. So I don't know, whatever that means. It just
he does that a lot. I feel.
It's interesting, but yeah, he does.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully that becomes a reality soon, because it's always an excitement machine when that happens. But so also Islam Makhachev was meant to fight on the Khabib card, which is coming up pretty soon. RDA has pulled out, and Makhachev, I think at this point they're still looking for a fight. He actually called out Chandler and some other guys as well, because Chandler's obviously new signing to the UFC. He's going to be there anyway on Fight Island. They're in the same weight class. So it was like Makhachev was sort of saying on Twitter, if you want to fight, like, I'm there, I'm free. If you're going to prepare anyway, why not? Let's just run it. But it begs the question, like, is it worth Chandler taking it? I mean, that's the thing. I don't think he will. I don't think he's leaning towards it. I think the UFC would probably save him, given he's like the big signing. You'd want to like hype him up a bit more, given all the hype around him and that he could potentially be a top contender. I don't think you'd want to feed into a dangerous dude like Islam Makhachev without much hype around it. And then there's, yeah. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think they would even consider making that the UFC, Chandler fighting Makhachev? Do you think they find someone else?
No, I don't think so. I think it's really hard to get Makhachev a fight. I don't know a whole lot about him, but he's just really good and in that awkward position where people, just slightly above him don't want to take an L to him. And, I'm not too aware of the situation, but I also I'm pretty sure Chandler did explicitly say that he's more interested in top 5. And I think he said his absolute ideal opponent is Ferguson. So I couldn't really see him taking a Makhachev fight. No, because it doesn't warrant a title fight after that or anything. It would just be sort of just a fight just sort of thrown in there, in my opinion. Yeah, no, I think Chandler sort of waits for the upper echelon, and I'm not too sure what they do with RDA Makhachev, to be completely honest. But all the best for RDA getting over COVID. Sure, it'd be fine, but
yeah, easy. Well, I feel like Makhachev is sort of in that same category as Chimaev, as in like no one really wants to fight them. Chimaev apparently has been struggling to get a fight.
Did you read his? Did you read the same thing I did? Yeah, about apparently Wonderboy turned him down. Who was the other one? There was a middleweight contender or middleweight fighter.
I can't remember. I know they were talking about Maya, Wonderboy. There's been a lot of names that have been thrown in the mix, apparently. But it's kind of an interesting one because apparently Neil Magny wanted him. I know Kevin Holland had mentioned that he'd be interested in fighting him as well, though he just fought recently. Yeah, it is a tricky situation because what do you do if no one wants to fight him? Wonderboy didn't want to fight him because what's he got to prove? Like, what does he get out of it fighting someone dangerous like Chimaev, who even if he beats, it's like, oh, well, you expected to win. You're way higher. You're a well-known dude. So I kind of understand why Wonderboy wouldn't want to risk that. He's sort of been around the block and sort of looking to fight someone like an Edwards or something like that. But
yeah,
yeah,
Edwards turned him down too. But sorry, I just remembered who the middleweight fighter was. It was Weidman who doesn't want to fight
that's
Chimaev.
right. Yes.
Yeah. Just had to throw that out there before it escaped again. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, no,
Conclude.
like it is interesting. I don't know what I think they were hoping to book Chimaev maybe on the Ortega zombie card, but I guess they'll have to postpone it a little bit at this point. But interestingly, I mean, I know it's Twitter, so how do you know how much sense to make of all these things? But sometimes it does carry some weight. Till reckons if Chimaev can't find a fight after he destroys Jack Hermanson in December, Chimaev can get some of that Liverpool heat, Lam. So now I think this is a bit of like, like he's half serious, but also by the time he would actually get matched up with a Chimaev would be a top contender anyway. So this isn't like, it's not like he's going to fight him right now. It's sort of like, bro, I'll give you a fight. But by the time I fight in December and it's like February, Chimaev's probably fought like 5 times since then.
Yeah.
But it was cool though. I like seeing that sort of hype. Like I'm just going to, come get some, fuck the rankings,
There was this Darren Till. I'm not too, in tune with Premier League soccer, but there was something about some controversy with a Liverpool defender. And Darren Till posted something on Twitter. It was like, I haven't seen this poor defense since Masvidal knocked me out or something like that.
Right.
Like, that's the Liverpool. It was fucking hilarious. I love the guy. But yeah, no, that would be fun, man. That would be really fun. And exactly like you said, by the time that happens, Chimaev could be just, up to him anyway. So it's really funny.
Yeah, I guess things to watch, and like there's things are being set in motion potentially, so it is interesting. Just lastly, before
can we just quickly, Izzy Jones, man, they're going hard. Just where do you think that happens?
Yeah, look, I think like they don't give a fuck. Like there's no like boundaries here. They're just going hard in the paint for anyone who's been following it. Yeah, look, I think the UFC would like to make that fight. I think Izzy is kind of set. My guess is Izzy feels like he can do that whenever. Like as in Jones is going to just be there. He doesn't seem in a hurry to move up to heavyweight if that ever happens. So I'd love to see it right now because it seems like the perfect point of Izzy sort of like at the height of his popularity. Just came off an extremely impressive, dominating win against a big dude in Costa. They've been talking all this shit. Jones has been out for a little bit, so everyone would like to see him back and be challenged. So yeah, I don't think it happens next. I think Izzy does wait for Kasanganay. I think maybe even potentially one more fight after that. But my guess is at least Kasanganay, and then they book it maybe early 2021. And I think Jones just sits on the sideline, to be honest. I don't think he's going to... I think he fancies himself a lot more against Izzy, who's not as big and also money-wise going to get paid versus someone like a Stipe, who's just much bigger and seasoned veteran and very dangerous. Or like, I don't think he's going to fight Francis Ngannou, to be honest, at this point anyway. But not that he's scared of him, but I just don't think... I think the risk-reward ratio isn't the same. That's my theory. But what do you think? Do you think it happens?
Oh, man, soon? Yeah, I think it happens in 2021 at some stage. Yeah, it's just, it can't not at this point. It's getting like too heated, too personal, and there's got to be a payoff. It's just going to be really interesting because, earlier on thinking about the bout, the potential fight, it was more along the lines of, in my mind, just Jones being too big, too skilled. Well, not so much a skill thing, just size actually. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to consider that Jones doesn't just like pull you down and elbow the shit out of you and KO you anymore. Like, he tends to sort of just have that tip top A++ defense. But, I'm not sure what it looks like against Izzy at this point. So that's just sort of why I asked, is just they're getting so heated, so personal. And the more time that progresses, the more I sort of start to lean towards Israel having a bigger impact in that fight, which is what Israel sort of seems to have wanted in the first place anyway, just that time. And I feel like it's working.
Yeah, no, it seems like it's sort of playing into Adesanya's hands, like how he'd want it to, map out to that ultimate fight with Jones. just lastly, before we wrap up, Ortega Zombie is next week. So
King.
there's been, a long time in the making. There's been a bit of this one seems a bit personal. There's been like a lot of shit talk and some controversy behind the scenes between these two dudes at an event. And yeah, we're finally getting it. Ortega's been out for ages, man. So yeah, real keen to see Ortega back in there. Korean Zombie, he always comes to fight. That should be a really interesting one. And then after that, we got Habib Gaethje, which is, plenty wrapped up.
Is that in 2 weeks?
That's in 2 weeks, man. Yeah, it's sort of creeping up now.
Fuck.
So
Fuck.
lots going on.
Fuck. Do you know what my favorite memes on the internet at the moment are? The fucking nerdy Justin Gaethje pictures, and then they're just like, "You're telling me this is the man who's gonna take out the man who's wrestles bears, blah blah blah." And it's just like, yes, it's just it's just like pro Justin Gaethje memes, but for old photos of him when he's a little, probably will still kill anybody, but a little scrawnier. He's got his glasses on and stuff like that. That's
right.
I love it. Gotta love the internet.
And I also saw another one. Yeah. It was like side by side. I think it was like a Navy SEAL with like tattooed face and stuff. It's like what my mum thinks a dangerous man's like versus like what we know a dangerous man is like. It's got like a nerdy picture of Justin Gaethje or Khabib like smiling or something.
It's so good. It's so fucking good.
And yeah, the greatest example of that would be Izzy versus Costa or something like that. But
just to touch on those events quickly. I have no predictions. I just don't know. It's also tight, cutthroat, absolute warriors doing battle over the next couple of weeks. I mean, aren't they always? But it's just the main events over the next couple of weeks you'd expect to be wars. It'd be interesting to see Ortega after a couple of years. I'm not sure if it's like over surpassed 2 years, but it's been a long time since he had that fight with Holloway. And Korean Zombie, we know, is just granite chin, just keeps coming. So very interesting. And then, I can't wait till we're at Khabib Gaethje. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, fucking huge. Anyway, Mig, thanks for joining me as usual on a Monday. And I'll talk to you next week to chop up Ortega Zombie and even preview Habib Gaethje and that whole card. So take it easy, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Sounds fucking good.